Abundant Grace International School, we are located right in Obuasi, precisely BDM. The school has a number of facilities that aid in learning. We have qualified and trained teachers who are ready and willing to assist the children. The school has many facilities such as the ICT laboratory. We also have a science laboratory. We also have a library. The school has a number of buses which convey the children from their various destinations to the school premises. We have the football team, we have the drama group, we have a lot, and the school is based on the Christian principles. For more inquiries, you can call this number 0541 310 901 0541 670772. Abundant Grace in God Reach.
Hello, good morning, viewers over there. We thank God for another day. Last week, I was supposed to teach Tweet Army, but because of something, I didn't teach you the Army. And here today, I'm going to treat science. We are going to solve questions, like examination questions. So what I'm going to do today is very important. The science aspect, we have the practical aspect. That's question one. Compulsory part. That is question one. It starts from A up to D, and it carries 40 marks. It carries 40 marks. It is compulsory. So if you fail to answer that question, it means that you are going to fail in science. You find it difficult to get one because of that compulsory part. It is a practical aspect in science. One question will come from physics, one question will come from chemistry, and one question will come from biology, and the last one is agriculture. So if you want to pass science, if you want to get science in one, if you want to get one in science as a candidate, you have to know how to answer this area. It is very important. If you want to get one in science, it is very important for you to answer the compulsory part. You cannot answer the theory questions without answering the compulsory part for you to get one. So if you don't know how to answer the practical aspect, then you have to clear up your mind. You will not get one in science. So today, what I'm going to do is very important. Now, in science, they will give you the diagram. You will study the diagram well before you answer the questions. So, question one, we have the A part. Now, look at the question over there. Now, study the organism below and answer the questions. So, you have to make sure that you study the organism well before you start answering the questions. You don't have to be in a rush. Just study the organism over there. Because now look at the question. Question 1A, it carries 10 marks. Question 1B also carries 10 marks. Question 1C also carries 10 marks. And the last part, which is agriculture aspect, also carry 10 marks. So if you sum up, you get 40. And the theory aspect, you are going to answer 4 questions. And each of them carries 15 marks. So if you add them together, you get 100 marks. So section B, you get is 100 marks, and section A is 40 marks. So if they add everything together, you get 140. So if you want to get one in science, at least you have to get 120 out of 140. Then they will convert it to 100%. If you get 120 out of, then you get 90 something or 90 and above, then you get your one and go. Now look at the question over there. Study the organism below and answer the questions. We have organism A, organism B, C, and D. So it is very important for you to study the question before you answer. And I want you to notice something here. The spelling is very important. If you miss one alphabet, you are wrong. Here, they will not consider you. If it is tapeworm and you are spelling the word tapeworm and you make a mistake, You are wrong. So we have to be very careful with your spellings. So let us go straight to the marking scheme. The marking scheme will help you to answer the question if you go to the examination hall. Now, before we start, I want you to look here. We have 2.5 marks. The first question, that is I. Correct spelling to score. Otherwise, award 0. I want you to notice something there. It is very important. 2.5 marks each. Correct spellings to score. Otherwise, award 0. This space is very important. Don't just write anything there. You have to study the organism and write the correct spelling. Now, the first organism, the organism A, is caterpillar. So the word caterpillar, if you miss one L, you are wrong. If you instead of the C, capital C-A, you write C-E, you are wrong. This is how they mark the exams. So if you're able to follow the rules and regulations, you can easily get your 1 in science. So the first organism, that is organism A, is caterpillar. Organism B is weevil. Organism C is rat or mouse. If you write rat, they will mark you. If you also write mouse, they will also mark you. And the last one is tapeworm. The last organism is tapeworm. And if you're able to write with the correct spelling, you get your 2.5 marks. It is very important. Now, let's go to II. Let's go to the question before we come back to the marking scheme. I. List 2 food, each destroyed by organism. List 2 food, each destroyed by the organism A, B, and C. So here, the organism D is not part. So we are going to study the food. Now we have organism A, B, and C. So organism A, what food can organism A destroy? You ask yourself that question. Organism B, what food can organism B destroy? And C, what food can organism C destroy? You have to ask yourself this question before you put down something. You have to ask yourself this question before you write down the answer. Now, the first organism is caterpillar. What food can this organism destroy? The second organism is weevil. What food can be destroyed by weevil? And the last one is mouse or rat. What food can be destroyed by this organism? So list 2 food, each destroyed by organism A, B, and C. So we have to read the question again. So let us go back to the marking scheme. Now, caterpillar, that is the organism A. Vegetable. Write vegetable into bracket, okra, tomato, etc. The next one is maize. That's weevil. Maize, cassava, rice. You can also, if you know beans, they can also destroy beans. You can also write beans. If you don't remember anything, beans is there, rice is there, maize is very common. Maize and beans. They always destroy maize and beans. So you can write them. And the last one, organism C, which is rats, yam, cassava, maize, right, granite, etc. This one also carries 3 marks. 3 marks. Half mark each. Correct spellings to score. Otherwise, award 0. It is very important. So if you make spelling mistake, you get everything wrong. So if you know you cannot spell maize, rice is there, you can write rice. Or if you can't spell the word rice, just write beans and go. Just write beans and go. The next one, let's go to I. Let's just go to the question. I. State one way of controlling A, B, C, and D. One way of controlling A, B, C, and D. How, you ask yourself this question. How can you control this? Just ask yourself that question. How can I control these organisms in my house? So that it will help you to get the insight for the answer. State one way of controlling. So how can you control caterpillar? Assuming you are a farmer, how can you control this organism in your farm? Weevil. How can you control weevil? If there's a lot of weevil in what? In your maize, a sack of maize. If there's what? A lot of weevil in the sack, how can you control them? And the next one, how can you control this organism, the rat? How can you control it? And the last organism is the tapeworm. How can you control tapeworm? But remember that the tapeworm is what? An endoparasite. Remember that the tapeworm is an endoparasite. So the tapeworm can be found in the intestines of human being. And you normally go to hospital at times. You go to hospital, the doctor will give you dewormer. You may say in our local language, sonsono cannot survive in your stomach. The worms survive in the intestines of human being. The temperature in the stomach is very hot. And because of that, no organism can survive there. And the pH of the acid in the stomach is very high. And because of that, no organism can survive. The pH ranges from what? 0.9 to 1.5. The pH of 0.9 to 1.5 is very strong acid. And because of that, no organism can survive in the stomach. So all the worms survive in the intestine. So we have taken dewormer before. That's the work of our dewormer. If you take in dewormer, it will kill the worms in your intestine. So this one is simple. So let us go back to the marking scheme. Let us go back to the marking scheme and answer the questions. Now, I. So the first one, organism A is what? The use of what? Insecticides. Organism B is hand picking. Hand picking. The organism B is hand picking. You can just pick them with your bare hands. And organism C is what? Weed control. Early harvesting. If you want your crops, you just harvest them early so that they will not come there and destroy it. Application of recommended rodenticides and pesticide is also there. You can go to the market and buy this kind of products. You can go to the market and buy the products so that you use it to spray your farm. And the last one is what? Drenching. Drenching is a way of what? Dipping in the organism. Drenching or deworming. I told you, deworming. Deworming tool is there. Deworming tool is there. The drenching is used what? To control ectoparasites. The drenching is used to control ectoparasite, but the deworming is used to control the endoparasite. Take note of that. Take note and look at over the marking scheme, the comment over the correct spelling to score. Otherwise, award 0. This too is very important. So if you know you cannot spell what drenching, just write deworming and go. If you know you cannot spell drenching, just write deworming. Or the insecticides, just write it, hand picking, weed control. You can end there if you don't want any trouble. If you don't want any trouble, weed control. Because if you write weed control and early harvesting, if you make a mistake there, they will mark you wrong. So if you don't want any trouble, just write one answer there. Just write one answer. We have what? Drenching. If you know you cannot spell it, just write deworming and go. So let's go to Ivy. Let's go to the question. Ivy. List the groups by which organism A, B, C belongs. You have to ask yourself, group pain and organism we womb, an insect or any other. So you have to ask yourself, list the groups by which organism A, C, and B. Without wasting my time, let us go to the marking scheme and find out the answer. Now, the A is what? An insect pest, caterpillar. Vivo is also an insect. And C is rodent. Rodent pest, and D is what? An endoparasite. An endoparasite. So the D is an endoparasite. And don't forget, we have two types of parasites. We have endoparasite and ectoparasite. Ecto means, ecto is a prefix. In English language, ecto is a prefix, meaning outside. Meaning outside. Ecto is a prefix, meaning outside. And endo is a prefix, meaning inside. So ectoparasite means that parasite is found outside the organism of its host. I want you to take note of that. That parasite is found outside of it. And endo means that parasite is found inside the host of the organism. Inside the host of organism. Inside the host of organism. So it is very important. It is very important. So let me write it on the board for you. So we have ecto. This is a prefix. Ectoparasite. So this one, it means outside. So this parasite is found outside the host of the organism. And we have endo. Endo. This is a prefix meaning inside. So, as the name implies, so this organism is found inside the body of the organism. And the endoparasites, they are mostly found in the intestines of the organism. Take note of that. And the alimentary canal, the intestines of the organism. Take note of that. So we have two types of parasites. We have endoparasite and ectoparasites. So tapeworm is a typical example of endoparasite. This tapeworm is endoparasite. Now let us go to question B. Question 1B. Question 1B. Let's go to question 1B. Now, this one too is very simple, but you have to study it carefully. One, you have to know the topics, the topic the question is coming from. This will help you to answer the question correctly. It is very important. You have to know the topic. Now, study the diagram and answer the question on it. This one is under life cycle of a flowering plant. So, this one, you have seen an embryo sac over there. This will guide you to answer the question. Now, we have also seen oval. You have also seen egg nucleus. You have also seen what? Micropyle. So this one is telling you that it is what? Reproductive part of what? A plant, a flower. So this one, they have brought this one to guide you. So before you start, you have to read all the labels before you start answering the question. We have seen embryo sac over there, oval over there. Oval form the seed. You have seen it over there. You have seen it over there. So you have to study the labels well before you answer the questions. Before you answer the questions. So we have to study the diagram. We have to study the diagram. So now let's go to I. What does the diagram represent? Look at the marks over there. 2 marks. Name the part labeled I to V. 5 marks. It means that if you're able to label 1, you get 1 mark. With what? Correct spelling. They will give you your 1 mark. So if you're able to label all the parts, you get your 3 marks. Now, I state the functions of I, and I. Here, they are specific. So you have to write the functions of I, and I. So it is what? 3 marks. So at least you have to write one function or two. At least you have to write two. You have to write two functions. Because if you write one, you can get it wrong. But if you write 2 or 3, you can get one wrong, can get one correct. So it is very important to know that. The last one, what is the role of II in flowering plants? The role of II. So without wasting my time, let's just go to the marking scheme. Without wasting my time, let's go to the marking scheme and answer the question. Now, so look at the comment over there. The answer is important, but the most important is the comment. You have to look at the comment before you answer the question. Now, 2 marks, correct to score. It means that if you write any other thing, you'll be awarded 0. Take note of that. 2 marks, correct to score. So, fertilization of a flowering plant or pollen tube. So, this answer will be accepted. This answer will be accepted. And I hope you remember when you went for the workshop, the science teacher told you, the examiner told you that we have some specific answers in the marking scheme. If you write any other answer, they will mark you down. That is why students always fail in examination. They have the marking scheme over there, so they will make sure that they will check your answer. If your answer is not in the marking scheme, they will mark you wrong. So learn how to answer this kind of questions. So fertilization of a flowering plant is simple. Just write it, because I told you that you have seen embryo sac over there. You have seen oval. You have seen egg. So for this one, it is talking about what? Fertilization. So the moment you see these labels, it is talking about what? Fertilization of what? A flowering plant. Now, let's just label the parts. I is stigma. I is stigma. I is pollen grains. I is pollen grains. I is ovary. I is ovary. Ivy, pollen tube. Ivy is pollen tube. And V is style. Now look at the comment over there. 5 marks. 1 mark each. Correct spellings to score. Otherwise, 0. Award 0. It is very important. That is why I keep on reading the comments. It is very important. That is why I keep on reading the comments. 5 marks. So 1 mark each. Correct spelling to score. Otherwise, award 0. It is very important. That is why I keep on reading the comments under it. So, stigma. The first one is stigma, pollen grains, ovary, pollen tube, and style. This one is very simple. This one is very simple. So, I. The functions. Let's go to the functions. So, what's the function of I? Stigma. It receives pollen grains during pollination. We have watched the video in classroom. You know it. We have watched how the stigma receive the pollen grains. You've watched the video before. So this one, I hope this one is not difficult for you to understand. It receives pollen grains during pollination. Now, it contains the male sex gametes. The pollen grains contain the male sex gametes. Now, this one, the pollen grains are found in the anther. And the anther is the male reproductive part of what? The flower. So look at this function. It contains the male cell's gametes. Now we have the female part of the flower and we have the male part of the flower. The stigma and the star is the female part, and we have the anther and the filament is the male part. So the anther contains the pollen grains. So look at, so the pollen grains, it contains what the male cell's gametes. It is produced by the anther. I want you to understand that. It is produced by the anther. That is why it contains the male cell's gametes. And the anther is the male part of the flower. And the next one, ovary, it contains the ovule. The ovary contains the ovules. The ovary develop to form the fruits, and the ovule develop to form the seed. I want you to take note of that. The ovary develop to form the fruits, and the ovule develop to form the seed. So the ovary contains the ovule. The ovule is found in the ovary. That is why, let's take orange for example. When you take orange or pawpaw, the ovary develops to form the fruit. You eat the fruit. So as soon as you divide it into two equal parts, you see the seed inside. This explains that the ovule is found inside the ovary. So when the ovary develops to form the fruit, the ovule also The ovule also develops to form the seed. So they always work together. They work together. So they here to 3 marks, 1 mark each. Correct spelling to score. Otherwise, award 0. So I hope this one will help you a lot. I want you to pay attention. Now, IV. Function of III. The ovary. Told you, it produces what? Fruits of the plant. The ovary produces fruits of the plant. So they here, if you're able to write this simple answer, you get 3 marks. Correct spelling to score, otherwise award 0. So this one is very important. So let's go to C. Let's go to C, the C aspect. Let's go back to C, the question. Let's go back to question C and read it before we come back. Now, look at the setup over there. I hope I'm going to end here. This one, I have to take my time and explain, so I don't want to be in a rush. So we shall continue next week. So after this, I'm going to end, because this one is very important, so I don't have to be in a rush, because this session carries 40 marks. If you want to get 1 in science, you have to master at least, you have to get 35 out of 40. You have to get 35 out of 40, or at least 36, not less than 30. If you get less than 30 here, it means that you are getting closer to 2. So if you want to get 1 in science, you have to get 35 and above in this session, because it carries 40 marks. Now look at the setup below. So before you answer the question, you look at the diagram carefully. You ask yourself some questions. You have to ask yourself some questions before you answer the questions. Now the setup below was used by students to separate solid mixture. Use it to answer the question that follow. So in your final exams, if they bring this question, they will tell you to study it carefully and answer the question that follow. That is why I told you that you have to study the diagram carefully before you answer the question. Don't be in a rush. You study it. You study the setup. Look at the setup over there. Is it filtration? Is it distillation? Is it decantation? Because this one is an admixture. So you have to study it before you start writing down something. Now we have filter paper over there. They have a little bit for you. We have suspension of chalk in water. So the label I, the I is common. You can see it. We normally use this one in normal home activities. So in the olden days, we have something called sachet water. Now we have sachet water, so we don't use this kind of objects. So if you don't understand, I will tell you later. Sachet water there, we normally use this object to what? To filter the water. We put the foam inside. The foam is used as what? The filter paper. Here, we normally put foam inside before you put in what? We pour the water into that object. So the foam was acting as what? A filter paper. There. The foam was acting as a filter paper. So we have the I also over there. We have the IV over there. So this one, we have to know it. This one is very simple. So use it to answer the question that follow. Name the parts. I, and IV. So this one is 4 marks. Look at the marks over there, which means that one, if you were able to label one, you get 1 mark. Now, what is the method of separation used? What is the method of separation used? This one too, if you're able to, this one, the answer is just simple, just one answer. If you're able to write it there, you get your 2 marks. Mention one mixture that can be used to separate by the method above. So this one too is 1. And state 3 factors that affect the rate at which a solid dissolves in a solvent. A solid dissolves in a solvent. So before you can answer this question, we have to know the definition of what a solid and what a solvent. So you have to ask yourself. So we have to analyze the question before you answer. Now, the solvent always dissolves the solid. And the solid is a solvent that dissolves in the solvent. So as a typical example of a solvent is what? Water. If you put chalk in water, the chalk is considered as what? A solid. And the water is solvent. So we have to take note of them. If now let me give you a typical example. If you put there's alcohol in water, they are all liquid. What I'm saying is very important. They are all liquid. But if you pour alcohol in water, the alcohol is going to dissolve in the water. So here, the alcohol is the solid, and the water is the solvent. Now, let me give you another practical example. If you put milk in water, the milk will dissolve in the water. So here, the milk, although the milk is liquid, but here, the milk is what? Solid, and the water is the solvent. Not only solid objects or particles or substance are solids. It can be liquid. It can be in a form of liquid. So I want you to take note of that. It can be in a form of liquid. Because if you put alcohol in water, it is going to dissolve in the water. So here, the water is acting as solvent and the alcohol is what? Solid. But they are all liquid. Take note of that. So solid is a substance that dissolves in a solvent. And a solvent is a substance that dissolves a solid. So here, let us come back to the diagram. Over there, so we have suspended what? Of chalk in water. Suspension of chalk in water. So here, the chalk, in this question, the chalk here, over there, you can see the particles of chalk in the water over there. So here, the chalk is solids, and the water is the solvent. I want you to understand that before we answer the question. Here, the chalk is the solids, because as soon as you put the chalk in this beaker containing water, the chalk is going to what? Dissolve in the water. So water is considered as what? A universal solvent, because it can dissolve most substances I want you to take note of this. Water is considered as what? A universal solvent because it can dissolve most substances. I know what I'm saying. This one, they normally ask you in section A, the objective question. Water is considered as a universal solvent because A, if they want to trick you, they understand the question part of the exam. So if you be in a rush, you get it wrong because A, they will not bring the answer. Because it dissolves all substances. Because it dissolves all substances. A, that's option A. B, because it dissolves most substances. So the answer is option B. Water is considered as what? A universal solvent because it can dissolve most substances, but not all substances. It cannot dissolve all substances because water cannot dissolve stone. Water cannot dissolve plastic container. Water cannot dissolve metal. So the answer is option B. Water dissolves most substances, but not all substances. That is why water is considered as what? A universal solvent. So I want you to take note. So here, the solute is chalk and the solvent is water. Now look at the diagram. They are pointing to what? This object labeled I. We have I over there. We have I, and we have IV. So, without wasting my time, look at what the scores before you answer. So here, you go back to the marking scheme. That's question 1C, not question 1B, question 1C. Okay. So look at the answers over there. The first one is what? Filter funnel. Filter funnel. I is chalk or residue. If you can't spell the word residue, just write chalk. It is in there. It is in the question, so you can just look at it and write it there. Chalk or residue. So I is what? Water filtrate. Or you can just write filtrate. If you write filtrate, it is accepted. You can write what? Filtrate. And the last one is what? Conical flask or volumetric flask. This one, if I'm not careful, you get it wrong because we have round bottom flask over there. It is not, this one is what? Conical flask or volumetric flask. So take note of that. We have to take note of that. So this one is what? Conical flask. Let's go to the board. Let me draw the round bottom flask for you to see. So we can see it on the board. This is a typical example of what? The round bottom flask. This is a typical example. Okay, so the conical, this is an example of what? The conical flask. So what you saw it in the question is a conical flask. Okay, so we have to know the difference. We have to know the difference. So now look at IV. Look at IV. Conical. Look at III. Look at the answer over there. Water filtrate. So water filtrate. You have to know that we have to know the process. We have to know the process. So here, the process was filtration. That is why I told you that if you write what filtrate, it is accepted. If you write filtrate over there, it is accepted. If it is distillation, it's what? Distillate. If it is distillation, the answer, that substance in that round bottom flask or what? The conical flask is what? Distillate. Distillate. So here is what? Filtrate. So the process is known as what? Filtration. Filtration. So we have to check the spelling. It is very important. Filtration. So we should name two measures that can be separated by this process. Sand and water. Sand and water. The use of funnel and what? Filter paper. If you pour the water will be in what? In the one bottom flask or the conical flask, leaving what? The residue, which is the sand, in the funnel. You can also, and gari and water too is the same thing. Gari and water. You can use this process. Filtration can also do this. So gari and water. Now, anyone, 1 mark, correct spelling to score. Otherwise, award 0. So this one too is very important. So if you can't remember sand and water, you can also what? Also write what? Muddy water is also accepted. If the water contains what? Impurities, you can also use what? Filtration to get the water. It's also accepted. Let's go to IV. Last one. So IV, we have the temperature of the solvent. That is the factors that affect the rate of what? The solute to dissolve in the solvent. We have the temperature of the solvent. The temperature of the solvent is very important. Okay, if it is having a high temperature, it will dissolve faster. The amount of solute, it will depend. If the solute is more than the solvent, it will take some time for the solute to dissolve in the solvent. And this solution will be what? Concentrated solution. To be very concentrated or saturated solution. Take note of that. Now, see, the type of solvent too is very important. Now, some of the solvent dissolve faster than others. So the type of solvent too is also important. Like if you put potassium permanganate in water. Now, potassium permanganate is known as the Abidjan brew. We normally use to wash our clothes. Abidjan brew, potassium permanganate. So if you put potassium permanganate in water, it dissolves faster. So the type of solid too is also important. And the volume of solvents. Look at, if you put small amount of potassium permanganate in water, in what? A saucepan, because of the volume of what? The water in that saucepan, it will dissolve that potassium permanganate faster. And the last one is what? The quantity of the solids. The quantity of the solid, the F and B are the same. The F and B are the same. So if you're able to write 3 of them, you get 3 marks, 1 mark each. Correct spellings to score. Otherwise, award 0. Now, I will end here. We shall continue on next week. Thank you for watching AGBS TV. Goodbye.
Abundant Grace International School, we are located right in Obuasi, precisely BDM. The school has a number of facilities that aid in learning. We have qualified and trained teachers who are ready and willing to assist the children. The school has many facilities such as the ICT laboratory. We also have a science laboratory. We also have a library. The school has a number of buses which convey the children from their various destinations to the school premises. We have the football team, we have the drama group, we have a lot, and the school is based on the Christian principles. For more inquiries, you can call this number 0541 310 901 0541 670772. Abundant grace, in God we trust.